So today is the 12th of the 12th, 2023. It marks the 2-year anniversary of the biggest sporting fix, certainly in my lifetime, and probably ever. I'm going to take you through those last 5 laps of Abu Dhabi and expose to you the nature of the fix. Some of you will have seen this before in my previous videos, but there are many that are new to the channel that have never seen or understood the true implications of what really took place. Now, I would love to do this by showing you the footage, but F1 TV have the rights, Formula 1 has the rights, and will block anything that I try to show you on YouTube. If you've got access to a recording, watch it back. Having watched this, watch it back. If you don't, you can subscribe to F1 TV. It costs about £2 a month here in the UK, and you've got all the archive Grand Prix. I'm not advertising them. I don't wish to endorse them in the slightest, but it's a way which you can actually see the footage and see exactly what happened. The key moments, the key things that they do not tell you about Formula 1 racing, they lie to you. The sport lies to you. And that is, every competitor in that race matters. Every competitor. So when the leaders start coming around and lapping the other competitors, we call them back markers now, but when the leader comes around and starts lapping people, those lapped cars are still in the race. They're not eliminated. They're still racing for positions themselves. In this race, the leader is Lewis Hamilton. He has come round and has lapped Lando Norris, who at that stage is in 8th place. Max Verstappen in 2nd. Max Verstappen had only lapped Daniel Ricciardo, who's in 11th place. So Max hadn't managed to make it past the drivers that are in 8th, 9th and 10th at this stage. But the key thing is this, Lando Norris in 8th is still in a race with Pierre Gasly in 7th. And if you look at the gap between Lando Norris, the orange dot at turn 7, and Gasly, the grey dot, halfway, well, along that straight between turn 8 and turn 9, that distance is approximately 12 seconds. The gap that separates Hamilton and Verstappen is also approximately 12 seconds. In actual fact, when you break it down to the fraction of a second, Norris is closer to Gasly than Verstappen is to Hamilton. What happens when a safety incident happens? The race control, which are in charge of safety, deploy a safety car. And what that does, that causes the situation to become more controlled. The bunch of competitors bunches up behind that safety car. It slows everybody down. They all bunch up. The bunching up can take 2 to 3 laps. As you will see, I'm going to play this route. You will see that happen. That is standard. Once they then declare the track safe, having cleared up everything and done all the checks necessary to make it safe, they then carry out a procedure, which is the unlapping procedure, whereby any lapped cars which are held back get released and are given a lap of the track with which to catch the back of this pack. What that does, that reinstates the correct race order, first down to last, and the gaps in between each competitor are nullified. Okay, that is the restart conditions. In the regulations of the sport, in that year, it was Article 48 of the regulations. It tells you what needs to happen when a safety car is deployed. It tells you that when a safety car is deployed, the safety car has to remain on track until the leader is behind the safety car and all of the competitors are bunched up behind that leader, nose to tail in the correct race order. That's what 48.9 and 48.10 tell you needs to happen before that safety car can be withdrawn. 48.12, 12, okay, is exactly the same purpose, but just tells you what you need to do to achieve that when cars have been lapped in the race. And that is the process you go down to achieve that. The sport lies to you. Martin Brundle lies to you. David Croft lies to you. F1 TV, which is showing you the footage and interjecting the messages, lie to you. The FIA have lied to you. Michael Massey has lied to you. All of the teams of the sport have lied to you. They've been complicit because they've not called this out. What has happened is, prior to this event taking place, they've got together. They've realised that this event is going to attract a huge global audience, an audience they've never had before, and they want to retain that audience. An audience that doesn't understand the sport. They don't understand that certain things happen in motor racing that mean you cannot be racing. You've got to deal with safety incidents and you can't race during them situations. And then if the duration of the race ticks by whilst you're dealing with that safety incident and all the procedures you need to go through, well, unlucky. That race ends as a bit of a damp squib because you can't reignite racing again. They were determined for that not to happen because they didn't want to turn viewers off. But that's not sport. That is not authentic sport. What that is doing, that is manufacturing something, that is bastardizing the rules of a sport to facilitate a drama. And what that is doing, that is actually artificially impacting the chances of the competitors in that race. That's manipulating the situation to contrive a result. And if you do that in the right way, you can actually contrive the result of the race, which is exactly what they did. So what the sport did, it sought the agreement of all of the competitors for this notion of trying to ensure the race didn't end behind a safety car. The benefits being it would retain a lot of the viewers that were new to the sport. It wouldn't turn them off by ending in a boring way that they wouldn't understand. Okay, so the teams agreed to that because it was beneficial to them. The more fans watching the sport, the more money for each of these teams. So they agreed to that. Red Bull then went away with Sky Sports F1, with the FIA, and whoever else was involved in this, F1 TV, and they worked out a way of ensuring it was fixed in Max Verstappen's favour. And I'm going to show you that right now. So here we go. Nicholas Latifi, blue dot at turn 13, just about to crash. And you'll see that blue dot come to a standstill just after turn 14. Here we go.
This season by those slight regulation changes.
Well, that feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? But yes, Mercedes had an awful pre-season test, didn't they? We thought they would be in terrible trouble come the first race.
Oh no! Nicholas Latifi has crashed, and I think that is at turn 14, where we saw Kimi Raikkonen crash in practice. It is at
Kimi Raikkonen crash in practice. I would love footage of that. I would love footage of that.
Turn 14, and yes, that will be a safety car because marshals are going to need to recover that Williams and to work on it. And this now completely changes the context of this race if they can clear the Williams in time and we can have a couple of laps racing to the checkered flag.
Okay, Lewis Hamilton is on lap 53 of 58. So when he crosses the start-finish line, he'll have 5 laps to go. What is standard in these type of scenarios is it takes around 3 laps for which the safety car comes out on track and all of the competitors then bunch up behind him. That is the way these things work. You will see this unfold. Watch the dots, watch how long it takes them to bunch. This is standard. Why are Sky Sports suggesting now that it's possible to get a couple of laps racing? Because once them cars are bunched, then and only then does the race director give the instruction for the released cars to unlap, and then after they've unlapped, that safety car must remain on track for a further lap to give them the opportunity of catching the back of the pack. That's in the regulations. There's no provision to do anything else. This notion of resuming racing with lapped cars left in situ is a lie. It's a complete lie. And so them even proposing from the outset that it is possible to see a couple of laps left racing is an absolute lie, setting people's minds up to believe it's possible to witness something. The average duration of this sort of incident of taking place before racing resumes is about 5.5 laps. Look where Lewis Hamilton now is. He's about to go on to lap 54. 5 laps. A couple of laps isn't possible.
There's bound to be a couple, and of course that's where Max Verstappen's much fresher tyres will fire up and give him the...
Straight away, putting into your head this notion of the tyre difference. They're both on hard compound tyres at this moment in time. You can see if you go to data view.
On any kind of restart.
We've got Lewis Hamilton on these hard compound tyres at that stage are 38 laps old. Max Verstappen is on 16-lap old hard compound tyres. So this notion of much fresher tyres firing up quicker, well, there's going to be a slight advantage, but nowhere near the advantage that he ultimately got. But Brundle is once again sowing the seed.
Any kind of restart, it depends how there will be, I'm pretty sure, on lap 52, obviously because of the slow pace.
Hamilton is on lap 54, Brundle. Stop trying to make people think there's longer left in the race than there actually is.
5 to go, that they'll probably have a lap or two, as long as they get it, if they get a vehicle on there and get that out of the way. And
straight away speculating, building it up. You're probably going to see a racing lap. You're probably going to see a racing lap.
Coming into the pits, Max Verstappen. Hamilton stays out. Verstappen coming into the pits, and I would imagine there's a set of soft tyres waiting for him to go onto that Red Bull car. Yes, it is.
Box. Negative.
right, so if there is a restart, Verstappen now has fresh soft tyres. Lewis has heavily used hard compound tyres. They will let any lap runners through.
Note the use of the word any. They will let any lap runners through. That's not normal language to describe that situation. They will let the lap runners through. Okay, they will let them cars that have been lapped, and it's easy to identify that because all you need to do is look at data view, which they all have access to. Okay, and you can see on here, Norris +1 lap, Alonso +1 lap, Ocon +1 lap. There are 8 cars there that have been lapped. That is extremely easy to do on looking on data view. It's extremely easy to do looking on tracker view, because the leader Hamilton is ahead of this orange dot, which is Norris, which means anybody lower down the order than Norris is also lapped. So if we just go back over that bit again.
Fresh soft tyres. Lewis has heavily used hard compound tyres. They will let any lap runners through on the safety car restart. And
any, not all. Hey Martin, any, not all. I wonder what made you say that.
And he will presumably end up, well, they had nothing to lose. Once again, Red Bull had nothing to lose.
You'll get drilled with this notion of Red Bull having nothing to lose. Red Bull had nothing to lose.
They have nothing to lose. Hamilton is a long way clear as Perez also pits, as we can see, and there's quite a few coming into the pits. Hamilton's a long way clear on the track, but I rather get the feeling by the time he comes around to the main straight, he's not going to be able to pit and stay ahead of Max Verstappen. That chance wasn't there, or has gone by for Mercedes.
Verstappen tucked up behind Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin there.
But he won't be on the restart.
But he won't be on the restart. That's not how it's going to restart, is it, Crofty?
That's unbelievable.
Wow.
So look, we're on lap 54 of 58 here. They've got to clear that debris away, and the fire extinguishers have obviously gone off because the brakes, I'm sure, were getting very, very hot. But they've also got to let the lapped cars...
So you tell us what we know, okay, but what you do, you constantly throw in different options, because what you want to do is disorientate the viewer. Could it be this? Could it be that? They've got to do this, which is, yes, you're right. We know that that's what they've got to do. We're in agreement with that. But then you're throwing in different scenarios that people don't know about whether they're possible or not. That is your tactic.
Unlap themselves. Just at the back of my mind, I wonder if we're going to get any racing laps in this race. Wait and see. This is what happened to Nicholas Latifi. He was scrapping away with Mick Schumacher.
That's not the corner he crashed on, is it?
That was earlier on, I think, in the skirmish with Schumacher. They barged wheels, went off the track, would have picked up a bit of dust and debris on his tyres, and then the rear just lets go.
Probably dirty tyres from being offline there. Will we get any more racing laps or not?
So you can now see Lewis Hamilton leading the pack round the package, beginning to bunch. They're now about to go on to lap 55. However, look at the location of Perez, Sainz, Bottas, Mick Schumacher, Gasly and Tsunoda. Nowhere near bunching yet.
What jeopardy at the end of this Grand Prix, the end of this World Championship. Will there be any more racing laps. If there are, then Verstappen has got the tyres to really do something with them. Will they let the lap runners through?
Well, they always do let the...
Martin Brundle asks the question, proposes the notion, will they let the lap runners through? The rules change in 2012. Every Grand Prix where there have been lapped cars in situ, they let the lap runners through. That is because it is mandatory. There are 2 instances where it didn't take place. One was in Singapore, I can give you the year another time, and that was when the race control actually instructed a driver to go through and the communications were broken and he didn't know. And therefore they ended up restarting the race without him being released, but race control gave him the order to. The other time was where one of the competitors wasn't eligible because they got themselves lapped late in that safety car period. And if you get yourself lapped after the safety car has crossed the safety car line twice, unlucky, you are not eligible to unlap. They are both within the rules of the sport. Every other time, the lapped cars are released because that's the regulations. That's the only way in which you can go racing. And yet Brundle is lying to you by suggesting it's possible to go racing with lapped cars in place.
The lap runners through, and in between Hamilton and Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Ocon, Leclerc and Vettel.
And rather than identify 8, they identify just 5.
Yes, but if they do that, it extends the safety car period.
It doesn't extend it, it just is what it is. It is what it is. If it takes 5 laps, it takes 5 laps. It's not an extension of it.
But that's what they always do, take the lap runners out of the way so they're not interfering in play.
That is absolutely not the reason. It is to restore sporting fairness to every competitor to ensure the correct race order, first down to the last remaining competitor in the correct order, nose to tail. That is in the regulations, that is the purpose.
The situation behind me.
So, situation is, Verstappen has pitted. He had a free pit stop. We would have lost track position to him. 4 laps remaining when you cross the line. So this field has to bunch and then they have to send lap cars through. So it may not restart.
This field has to bunch. Look at the field. Is it bunched yet? And then they have to send lap runners through. This is Mercedes making their judgment calls based on the regulations of the sport, the rules of the sport. They've just been clearly articulated what needs to happen.
Is he right behind me?
He will be once they've sorted out all the order. This is going to take a while to sort out.
There might be one.
With new tyres.
Copy Lewis. We would have lost track position if we had pitted.
And that was the big key here. Mercedes, for the second time, keeping Lewis Hamilton out, whilst Max...
Suggesting that the big key here is the pit stop situation. That's not the big key here. The big key here is this race going to end behind the safety car? It's nothing to do with the tyres, because if it ends behind the safety car, it doesn't matter whether you're on hard tyres or soft tyres. You can't overtake each other. That's the big key.
Max Verstappen pitted. Red Bull had nothing to lose. Hamilton...
Red Bull had nothing to lose.
Potentially losing track position, and in this case, if we don't go racing again because you can't overtake under the safety car, he would have lost the World Championship.
Now, if we don't go racing again because you don't overtake under a safety car, Lewis Hamilton becomes an 8-time world champion. This notion of, oh, he would have lost the World Championship, that's the only time you mention in the last 10 laps of that race, this notion of Lewis Hamilton and the World Championship. Other than that, it's all about Max. Strange, that.
Is there a vehicle pulling the Williams out of the way or not yet?
Can't see it at the moment. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, have a load of other people.
Let's answer that question. Now, we can't see on track at the moment, can we? We can't see on track because there's no cars turning turn 14. But what we can do, we can go to Nicholas Latifi's driver cam. What's that? That's Nicholas Latifi's car in the air looking at the crowd being craned off the track. But Brundle and Crofty couldn't see that. That's right. You
We've
couldn't
had
tell.
Lance Stroll as well into the pits. I'll give you those orders as they shake out. But yeah, it was just bad luck. I mean, you saw the Mercedes mechanics just hanging around outside the pits looking at whether they had the order to come in. But Hamilton was so close to the pit entrance that it does seem that the engineer's right there. Whatever they would have done, they would have lost track position.
The safety car's not going full gas down the straight.
Copy, Lewis,
His
understood.
tyres are cooling. He needs more pace, more heat into those tyres.
This is awful for Lewis then.
Now watch this. This is what you saw on the main feed. I'm going to show you for a second. Look at where Lewis Hamilton and the safety car is. They're just about to round turn 13, so just about to reach the site of turn 14. But what you get to see, if it loads
Then
up,
the call
is a replay.
was to say that it has to be a safety car there.
So you're not seeing these cars come around.
And
And I'm having to do it like this because otherwise it will get blocked. It's a replay.
but will they?
It's a replay.
Will
It's a replay.
they let
It's a replay.
the lap runners through? I don't
Brundle is asking us, will they let the lapped runners through?
think it's absolutely mandatory, but that's normally on a wet day that the
It's a replay. Where are the cars now?
runners through. I don't think it's absolutely
So we're past the scene. We're not getting a true indication of where these cars are relative to this incident, whether it's going to be possible to get this incident cleared up in time to resume racing. That's what we're getting. And we get the bullshit from Brundle. So let's go back and listen to what has to be said.
His tyres are cooling. He needs more pace, more heat into those tyres.
This is awful for Lewis then with those hard compound, heavily used tyres. So
Once again, focusing on this notion of tyres being the important issue, which, funnily enough, turned out to be the factor, didn't it? Which never should have been, because it never should have been a race.
there's the shot then that calls to say that it has to be a safety car there. And but will they let the lap runners through? I don't think.
Again, Brundle asked that question. It's not, there's no optional rules. The rules are the rules. 48 is what happens when a safety car is deployed. None of them are optional. If a safety car is deployed, this is what must happen. The safety car cannot leave the track until the leader is behind it and all of the other competitors are bunched up behind it in the correct race order. That is 48.9, that is 48.10. Read them. If there are lapped cars in place, then any cars that have been lapped get released once it's safe to do so and are given a further lap behind of the other cars having to stay behind that safety car for a further lap, and those released cars are then released to try and make it around that track and link up with the back of the pack in order to go racing again. The race director has it within his discretion to keep that safety car on track until those released cars have made it all the way around and fully caught the back of the pack. Michael Massey has exercised that discretion on 4 occasions. Spain 2019, Brazil 2019, Sakir 2020, Eiffel 2020. Michael Massey knows what he's doing. In the steward's report, Michael Massey stated the purpose of that regulation is so that these lapped cars are gotten out of the way so that they don't interfere with the race between the leaders. That's utter bullshit, and he knows it because you don't keep that safety car on track for 2 laps after you've released those lapped cars if you're just getting them out of the way. He's an absolute liar.
I think it's absolutely mandatory, but that's normally on a wet day that they don't.
Once again, Brundle disorientating you. Oh, rules. Are the rules different on a wet day to they are on a dry day? Have we got optional rules?
And if so, how long will they wait for
The utter bullshit of how long will they wait? Utter bullshit, because we know that it is a minimum of 1 further lap of the safety car beyond the lap on which that they are released. At least that period of time. Could be 2. That's happened ever since 2012. And Brundle is asking the audience, he's asking the 108 million viewers globally, how long will they wait? proposing scenarios that people don't know. Oh, I wonder how long it's going to be. Well, I'll tell you, Brundle, it's a minimum of 1 lap. Stop fucking lying. You're the expert of the sport, presented to educate people, and you are lying to fans.
For those lap cars to get out of the way, if they wait for them to catch the pack up, which they don't have to do, then...
This notion they don't have to do. If you follow the letter of the regulations, then you don't have to wait for them to fully bridge the gap back to the last running part of this snake. No. But what you have to ensure is that you're not leaving drivers disadvantaged from where they were pre-incident. So what we know is, pre-incident, Lando Norris was 12 seconds behind Gasly. You cannot allow a safety incident to create a scenario in that race where some drivers have been able to bunch up. So Verstappen, who was 12 seconds behind Hamilton, is now half a second behind Hamilton. You can't leave Norris 50 seconds behind Gasly. You have to make sure that Norris has chance to get within those 12 seconds that he previously was within Gasly. And if he isn't, you keep the safety car lapping. That's the way it is. Ideally, that 12 seconds is the same half a second that all of the other competitors get the benefit of. So that when they start racing again, they're all in a position to challenge for position for the car in front, but be susceptible from being challenged from behind. That is what the sport is all about. And Brundle and Crofty are lying, presenting situations and scenarios to you that aren't allowed. They are not allowed. They are lying to you in commentary.
I don't think we'll get a racing lap. If they let them through, we could get 1 racing lap.
3 laps to go. Nicholas.
And you're proposing the notion of getting a racing lap, but you're ignoring the chances of competitors within this race. You are proposing the notion of just effectively separating just some of these competitors out so that they get to race, whilst ignoring the chances of other competitors. That isn't in accordance with the rules of the sport. It's not in accordance with the FIA International Sporting Code.
Latifi is seemingly okay.
Hamilton now on lap 56. Only now is this pack about bunched. Not quite. Gasly is still off of that due to pitting late in the safety car window. But they're still not in a position quite yet to release lapped cars.
After that contact with the barriers, around about 90 miles an hour. But he would have taken a whack, and it's good to see that he's okay. Sergio Perez coming into the pits again.
So Max,
I think they're retiring the car here. Perez into the pits for the 4th time. I didn't understand why, but I think they are retiring the car, and yes, they're not going to be...
So Perez is retired by Red Bull. Perez is surprised that he's retired because he doesn't feel there's anything wrong. You'll hear his reaction to this. The fact is, had Lewis Hamilton have suffered a puncture or a mechanical breakdown at this stage, Red Bull were on course for a 1-2 if Hamilton's out of the way. That would have won Red Bull the Constructors' Championship, where we're told all the money is attached to. And yet Red Bull retire Perez in a situation which looks like highly likely it could finish behind a safety car. They're lapping at safety car speed. There should be no major stress on Perez's engine.
Working on it, and that is the end of Sergio Perez's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Checo, we need to retire the car. We need to retire the car. Box.
And for the
really? Yeah, box.
And lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake.
And so what we've done, we've disorientated people. Oh, what's going on with Perez's car? And now lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake, as if that's a normal message. It is not a normal message. If it's not safe, the normal message is overtaking will not be permitted. There is a reason why overtaking will not be permitted, because you cannot release lapped cars until that track is safe to do so. And why it's not safe to do so, which they never show you, is if you go to Nicholas Latifi's car, and we can bring this around. What's this on the track? These are the marshals on the track, and you're not going to release lapped cars to send them off herring around that track whilst there are marshals still on that track sweeping away debris. That is the reason why the message overtaking will not be permitted would have been given, because that is the standard message, and what you get is this message.
Champions at the
Lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. That isn't in the regulations at all. This is a made-up message, because what they are doing, they are breaking the rules of the sport, and yet the casual observer does not know.
So Mercedes will be Constructors' champions at the end of this race, as it stands at the moment, assuming that Hamilton and Bottas finish this race. The Drivers' Championship, though, is very much up for grabs.
So the fact is, the moment in time that Perez, well, he said, assuming Hamilton and Bottas finish this race, Mercedes will be Constructors' champion. The moment that Perez retired, Mercedes became Constructors' champion. The deficit in the championship was 28 points prior to this race starting. If you've only got one car, the maximum points you can get is 26. So you retire one of your cars, you don't bridge a 28-point deficit. Mercedes are the Constructors' champions. They're saying, though, that the Drivers' Championship is up for grabs still. We're in a situation where we're on lap 56 and they are not releasing the lapped cars. If the lapped cars are not released on this lap, then this has to be a safety car finish, because the earliest they can release them would then be lap 57, and lap 58 would have to be that mandatory safety lap that they have to give the cars. It's a safety car finish, and providing Lewis Hamilton makes it to the end of the race, he becomes an 8-time world champion. But what they're proposing is, it's still up for grabs.
The lapped cars won't be allowed to overtake, which means that there are plenty of cars in between Hamilton and Verstappen for Verstappen to fight his way through.
It does not mean that in the slightest. You cannot resume racing with lapped cars in situ. Check out 48, Article 48 of the 2021 sporting regulations. They're very, very clear. They are very, very clear. They're not optional. You do this when a safety car is deployed. The only way you go racing is when the cars are in the correct race order, nose to tail, first down to the last remaining competitor. That's the only way you go racing. You do not resume racing with lapped cars in situ. There is no provision for that whatsoever. They lie to you.
Norris, Alonso, and also Ocon and Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel.
None of which are for position, of course.
No.
They're obliged to get out of the way, but Lewis...
Of course they're for position, of course. They're for positions. Well, now that Perez is retired, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 7th would like to get 6th, ideally.
Will be long down the road.
That, I suppose, is the compromise that race control have made here.
So we've got the commentators of the sport suggesting that the referee of the sport is making a compromise with the rules of the sport. What is going on there? What is going on there? Commentators of a sport will call out when an official isn't complying with the rules of the sport. Instead, these commentators are suggesting, oh, well, I suppose the referee is compromising with the rules of the sport here. That's fraudulent. It's strange that you're doing this ahead of the so-called human error. What do you know, Brundle and Crofty? You're in on the fix.
By giving the best possible chance for racing to the finish rather than finishing behind the safety car.
Oh, is that what you're assuming is happening here? You're thinking we're giving the best possible chance? What did you know? What discussions were you party to before this took place? This is a systematic fraud.
They've decided the lap cars will stay where they are.
That doesn't give the chance of racing to the finish, but you're telling the global watching audience that that's what it achieves.
Cancel that. Lap cars will not be allowed to overtake.
Yeah, of course. Typical decision.
It's classic.
I'm not surprised.
So what we get from F1 TV is the interjection of that message, and what that leads the listener and the viewer to believe is, oh, somehow race control are thwarting the attempts of Red Bull and the chances of Max Verstappen. And he's not surprised about it. That's been their their hard luck all season, hasn't it? It's been their hard luck all season. That's the narrative that they want to give people. That's the path they want to lead you down. The simple fact is, it's not safe. And the reason it's not safe is because there are men still on track. And I will show you that there are men, I say men, marshals. Let's have a look. Lewis Hamilton is just about to go round turn 14. Let's have a look.
I'll try and look at this.
And we'll have a look from Lewis's perspective as to why they would not have released the lapped cars. There they are, look. They're the marshals in the orange overalls at turn 14. That's why they couldn't release the lapped cars. And they're not going to be able to release the lapped cars until all this safety car snake has passed this location. The clerk of the course will then confirm that everything is safe. He'll be happy that the track is clear. He'll be happy that the barrier is capable of withstanding another impact should another impact happen at that location. That's when they'll declare the track clear. That's when it will be given the order to unlap. That's the way these things work.
Get one lap of...
It's classic.
I'm not surprised.
Well, I'll try and look at this objectively. We should get one lap of racing here.
Why? We should get one lap of racing. When Hamilton crosses the start-finish line, there will be 2 laps remaining. It is not possible to unlap. It's not possible to restart racing with lapped cars in situ. What makes you think it is possible to get one lap of racing? How are you diverting the attention of people? How are you conditioning the minds of people to believe that something is likely to take place? This is going to be a safety car finish. They will not give the order to unlap until Gasly passes the scene of that incident, by which time Hamilton will be beginning lap 57. The earliest that that last lapped car will pass the leader and the safety car could only be on lap 57, meaning that lap 58 has to be a lap of behind the safety car, which means it has to be a safety car finish. No alternative. No alternative.
If we allowed the lap cars to overtake, we'd have no laps of racing to the checkered flag.
And what would that mean? Lewis Hamilton is an 8-time world champion, a record-breaking 8-time world champion. They're just about to tell you this.
So what do Red Bull want? And Max Verstappen and Giampiero Lambiase as race engineer, do they want the chance, or do they want to finish behind the safety car with no overtaking? Because I think that is the decision that has come from race control. And personally, this is the decision that gives them the best chance if they want it.
Yeah.
This is the decision that's come from race control. You're explaining that race control are breaking the rules of the sport to give Red Bull a chance. That's what you're saying. And personally, that's the best chance for Red Bull if they want it. Thanks for that, Crofty. Thanks for that. Fraud.
I mean, the regulation, as I said, they may allow.
The expert of the sport, once again, lying about the rules of the sport. The regulation is nothing about they may. There are no options to that regulation. You do. They are what needs to be carried out. It's nothing to do with optional and your wet day in Belgium and Spa. Bullshit.
The lap cars through. It's not mandatory, as I pointed out, but as you point out, Crofty, there'd be no racing laps if they let the lap cars through, because I think the safety car will come in at the end of this lap.
And once again, there'll be no racing laps if they let them through. Well, what does that mean? Lewis Hamilton is going to make history. But Brundle thinks that the safety car will come in at the end of this lap, and there will be one racing lap, despite the fact that you can't go racing with lapped cars in situ. It's not optional. It's not permissible. We're on lap 57. This is the earliest now that these lapped cars can be released, which means lap 58 has to be a safety car lap. And Brundle suggests to us what he thinks.
Through. It's not mandatory, as I pointed out, but as you point out, Crofty, there'd be no racing laps if they let the lap cars through, because I think the safety car will come in at the end of this lap, and there will be one racing lap.
They'll all get blue flags, I would imagine.
Question to Michael.
This notion of blue flags, it's not even possible. It is not even possible. You cannot resume racing like that. after a safety incident.
Yes, go ahead.
Another red herring, another diversion, another way of disorientating the viewer, making them think, oh, what scenarios are we likely to see here? And then we get this interjected message. This is again chosen by F1 TV, creating the narrative.
Head Christian.
Yeah, why aren't we getting these lap cars out of the way?
Just give me, because Christian, just give me a second. Okay, my big one is to get this incident clear.
You only need one racing lap.
So what does that mean? What that means is, if you are part of F1 TV, you know the sport, you know the rules of the sport. You know what this sport is about, and you know what you need to film, and you can discard any messages that are irrelevant. That one's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. You know that on lap 57, the lap cars have not been released. That means that this is going to be a safety car finish. They choose to play to the world that message. What is that doing? That is setting things up as, oh, we only want to see one racing lap. We only want to see one racing lap. We just need to get them cars out of the way, and then we get to see one racing lap. That's not in accordance with the rules of the sport. F1 TV played you that. They chose that message. It's a created message. Let's be clear. This was all staged.
Well, I assume Christian's talking about then, you know, getting the lap cars out of the way, not clearing the incidents away.
Yeah, I mean, all of the cars in front of Max will get blue flags and are duty bound to get out of the way, but they're all in a reasonable fight themselves, aren't they?
Well, so here we go.
They won't get blue flagged. You can't go racing like this. But once again, each of these notions that they present, they reinforce them 2 or 3 times. Oh, there's be 5 cars in the way, and they'll all get blue flags. Oh, but they're not racing for position. But now, oh, but they're each in a race for themselves. Look at where Norris is relative to Gasly now. Look at the yellow, orangey dot behind Hamilton and the grey dot of Gasly. Norris was 12 seconds behind Gasly at the point in time Latifi crashed. You can't go racing like this now with Norris being left almost a lap behind Gasly. That is the purpose of the safety car rules and why lapped cars get the chance to unlap and then make it around the back of the pack to catch the back of the pack. That is the rule. That's sporting fairness to every competitor.
Normally, you know, you'd see the race leader backing up the pack a little bit when the safety car goes. I would imagine on this occasion, if we do get a lap, Martin, Hamilton will want to be
smoke screen and mirrors, talking about scenarios to set things up.
Disappearing off into the distance as fast as he can.
Yeah, I don't see any way Verstappen can do anything with that, but indeed, is the safety car coming in this lap? We think it should do, could do.
There is nothing in the regulations that actually would give them cause to think that it could do, should do. Absolutely nothing. Martin told us here at turns 2 and 3 that he thought that the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap and there will be one racing lap. And now he's telling us, is the safety car coming in this lap? We think it should do, could do. There is absolutely nothing in the rules or regulations that would permit that. And yet, once again, Brundle is suggesting to the world that this is a possibility. What do they know? Oh, it was just a human error by Michael Massey. But this human error is being spoken about before it even takes place by the commentators of the sport. It's being set up by the commentators. It's being set up by F1 TV. And Red Bull have got the jump on everybody. I wonder who's involved in all of this.
Is there any more debris to clear up? But we're halfway round already.
Race control are now saying lapped cars to overtake the safety car. So Norris and Alonso and Ocon and Leclerc and Vettel to overtake it.
And it's ending. Wow.
Mate.
Wow. Wow. And it's ending, and it's ending. Wow. Okay. And when we get, and it's ending, wow, what do F1 TV do? What do F1 TV choose to immediately play to the world?
Good.
Oh, Toto Wolff claiming it's not right. It's strange the way things are edited so quickly, isn't it? It's strange the way. So again, what they're doing, they're disorientating you. Yeah, this doesn't seem right. Even Toto Wolff's not saying it's right. But what's going on here? Martin's telling us that it's possible, and he thinks that the safety car's coming in. What's going on? What's going on? And there's some confusion, but.
So there's confusion, but the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. So those back markers allowed to overtake the safety car, and that is.
They're not back markers. That's 7th position in the race. That is now there at turn 16, and Gasly here is at turn 10. That's not a back marker. What's that fight for 6th and 7th going to look like? This is why the regulations are what they are.
It's now left Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen.
Left him as a sitting duck. That'll do. That's all you need to know. It was contrived. It was fixed. It was fixed by the entire show. Every interaction between the pit crew and their driver was lies. Those race strategies from every team know the rules and regulations of the sport. They know what needs to happen. None of them called it out. None of them called it out. They just accepted it. And when the fix was going on, they kept quiet. They did not expose it. None of them complained to the FIA after the event. When Mercedes did a protest to the stewards, every team that was affected should have done. None of them did. They shut up and they took the money. It's a $20 billion fraud at least. It's a fraud. It is sport fixing. It fixed the result of the 2021 championship. It deprived Lewis Hamilton of winning an 8th championship, and the entire sport was involved. Fraudulent bastards that need imprisoning. Fraudulent motherfuckers.